He had been lying face down on the ground for the past 48 hours, completely still, because just 100 meters behind him was a deadly cliff, and one small mistake would mean instant death. Desperately, he dug his fingers into the loose dirt, trying to hold on, but the ground couldn't support his weight, and slowly his body began sliding toward the edge. Panic took over, his breathing grew heavy, and he struggled to find something, anything to grab, but there was nothing around him except barren rock. In a last, desperate attempt, he stretched his legs wide and dragged his face against the ground, using it as a brake, somehow managing to stop himself. But then suddenly, his phone rang inside his bag, a final chance at survival. His hand trembled as he reached for it, but the moment he extended his arm, his body slipped again. Fear completely consumed him, yet he refused to give up. Taking a deep breath, he steadied himself and tried again, this time reaching with his left hand. Slowly, inch by inch, his fingers touched the phone, but at that exact moment, he lost his balance, and his body began sliding rapidly toward the cliff. Death was now just inches away. In that final second, he used every bit of strength left in him, spreading his arms and legs and pushing upward with everything he had, and by some miracle, he managed to grab the edge of a rock. Once again, he had escaped death, but his nightmare was far from over. Ahead of him was loose soil, behind him solid rock, and below him a fatal drop. Survival seemed almost impossible now. His body was exhausted, his mind was breaking, and fear had completely taken over. Then suddenly, his lips began to move. But he wasn't praying. He was counting the rhythm of the ocean waves. Again and again he watched them, studying their pattern, their timing, waiting for the perfect moment. And the instant he found it, he opened his eyes and without wasting a single second, let go. He falls straight down into the ocean. The impact doesn't kill him, but because the water isn't deep enough, his lower back slams hard against the rocks beneath, knocking him unconscious for a few moments. Luckily, he regains consciousness quickly. In a panic, he thrashes his arms and legs, using whatever strength he has left to somehow reach the surface. Even after escaping death, he gets no relief. He immediately drags himself toward higher ground and collapses onto a rock, gasping heavily for air. After a while, as his breathing begins to settle, a sharp pain shoots through his palm. He looks down and is horrified. There's a deep cut, nearly 10 centimeters long, carved into his right hand. The sight is so gruesome that he can barely look at it, but the relief of being alive outweighs the pain. Gathering himself, he tries to stand and leave the place, but the moment he moves his left leg forward, a sharp crack echoes from his lower back. In the next instant, both his legs go numb. Darkness clouds his vision and he collapses again. He has no idea how much time passes until the sound of ocean waves brings him back to consciousness. Struggling, he manages to sit up, but now the pain in his lower back is unbearable. He looks down at himself in shock. His left pelvic bone is fractured in 2 places. Now he understands just how serious his condition is. He tries to move, but his legs no longer respond at all. When he jumped, his back had slammed into the rocks with such force that his bones were nearly shattered, and now the sensation in his legs is slowly fading away. Then suddenly, he remembers his phone, his last hope. Frantically, he searches his bag, pulls it out, and tries to turn it on, but his heart sinks instantly. After being submerged in seawater for so long, the phone is completely dead. Now he has no strength to move, no way to call for help. Only pain, isolation, and a deadly silence stretching endlessly around him. The phone was completely useless now, helpless. The man looked up at the sky and started screaming for help at the top of his lungs. But this place was so isolated that no one ever came here, except a few crazy surfing enthusiasts like him. He kept shouting for a long time, but when no answer came, he finally gave up. Trying to pull himself together, he took off his t-shirt and somehow wrapped it around his injured hand to stop the wound from getting worse. Then he scanned his surroundings, desperately searching for a way out. But everywhere he looked, there was only death. To his left were sharp, jagged rocks. To his right, a steep cliff rising like a wall, and far in the distance, a small island with a strip of sand visible. It gave him a fragile hope. Maybe, if he could swim there, he might survive. After a few moments of thinking, he made his decision. Now it was either life or certain death. He picked up his bag and, using just one arm, painfully lowered himself into the water. At first, things went fine. He managed to get past the dangerous rocky area where he could have easily crashed, but soon he had to pay the price for his desperate decision. Swimming with one arm was too much for his already broken and exhausted body. As he reached deeper water, a sudden, sharp pain hit his stomach, and within seconds, he started sinking. Panic exploded inside him. He tried to scream, but his voice turned into bubbles and disappeared into the water. He lifted his arm, trying to call for help, but in that moment, he realized the truth. There was no one coming to save him, only himself. And then, like a man possessed, he began slashing through the water with his left arm, with every last ounce of strength, fighting against death itself. Somehow, just before drowning, he managed to reach the surface again and gulped in a deep breath, clinging to life. But now, his condition had become critical. Exhaustion, unbearable pain, and lack of oxygen were tearing him apart, and within moments, he lost consciousness. But it seems fate still isn't ready to end his story. Suddenly, a massive wave rises and drags him back toward danger. Helpless, he's tossed violently in the water, hurtling straight toward the sharp, jagged rocks along the shore. Death stands in front of him once again. In the final moment, he yanks off his bag, hurls it forward with all his strength, and the strap gets caught on a rock. Instantly, he grabs onto it, wrapping it tightly around his wrist. Now, he's hanging between the waves. Below him, the raging ocean. In front of him, razor-sharp rocks. And his life, hanging by a single fragile strap. Somehow, he escapes death yet again. But when the waves calm down, he's completely broken, exhausted, injured, and dangling from the rock like he's down to his last breaths. Just then, a hungry seagull spots him and suddenly dives at his wound, tearing a chunk of flesh from his hand. The pain jolts him back to consciousness. In panic, he drives the bird away and, summoning all his strength, snaps the strap of the bag. His body crashes down hard onto the sand. After resting for a moment, he begins dragging his half-numb body forward. Then suddenly, he hears a faint sound nearby. Like a man possessed, he starts digging into the sand in that direction, and unbelievably, he finds a phone. Hope returns to his eyes. He quickly turns it on, but instead of help, a video of his parents starts playing on the screen. Overwhelmed, he begins begging them for help, but they don't respond. Because it's not a live call, it's a pre-recorded video. The phone works, but there's no signal. That realization shatters him from the inside. Seeing his loved ones yet being unable to reach them breaks him completely. He can't understand why his fate has turned so cruel. He had only come here to surf, and one small mistake has brought him to this state. He survived, but half his body no longer works. And now, it's been over 36 hours since the accident. In all that time, he hasn't had a single drop of water. His condition is so critical that if he doesn't find something soon, he won't die of hunger. He'll die of thirst. Hope is almost gone. But then, his eyes catch something in the distance, a shiny can lying in the sand, and once again, a spark of survival ignites within him. Gathering the last bit of strength he has left, he reaches out toward the can, but the moment he picks up the can and tries to drink from it, all his hope shatters in an instant, because it's filled with nothing but salty seawater. Drinking it would be like inviting death. Helpless, he suppresses his thirst and starts dragging himself forward again. But after just a few steps, a sharp, hidden fishing hook buried in the sand pierces deep into his arm. Pain shoots through his entire body. He trembles, but he doesn't give up. Gritting his teeth, he slowly pulls the hook out of his arm. Blood pours out. The pain is unbearable, and finally, his exhausted body, already broken from hunger, thirst, and fatigue, gives up. He collapses, unconscious. When he opens his eyes again, it's deep into the night. Cold winds slice through his body. His legs have turned blue from the freezing temperature, and now the situation is so critical that if help doesn't come soon, even if he survives, he might lose his legs. That thought pushes him to move again. Dragging himself forward, he desperately searches for anything that could help him survive. He finds a piece of aluminum foil, a cup, and a fishing net buried in the sand. He wraps them around his body, trying to shield himself from the cold, but the shivering doesn't stop. Now he's freezing, dying of thirst, and running out of time. And then, suddenly, a loud crack of thunder splits the sky. Clouds begin to roar. A new hope ignites inside him. He quickly digs a small pit beneath him, lines it with the aluminum foil, places the cup inside, and looks up at the sky, mouth open, waiting for rain. It's been 3 days and 3 nights since he's had even a drop of water. His thirst is no longer just pain, it's madness. But once again, fate mocks him. Despite the thunder and roaring clouds, only 2 drops of rain fall from the sky. 2, that's it. The crushing fall from hope to despair breaks him from within. Unable to accept this reality, he frantically grabs the aluminum foil and starts licking it like a madman, as if his last chance at life is somehow trapped on its surface. But there's nothing there. Not a single drop of water, only the bitter taste of sand dissolving in his mouth. Somehow the night passes, and as morning arrives, hunger finally pushes him past his limits. He lies down on the sand, pretending to be dead, hoping a seagull will come close enough for him to catch. Slowly, he opens his eyes and sees one bird nearby. This is his chance. He quickly grabs a stick and swings it with all his strength, but he misses. Disappointed, he drags his half-numb body forward in search of food, but there's nothing around him except empty, barren sand. In the process, even the last bit of his strength fades away. Just then, his eyes fall on a broken surfboard. He moves toward it like it's his last hope, even lets out a cry of relief. But the very next moment, a bitter smile crosses his face as he pushes it aside. He knows the truth. No matter how great a surfer he once was, in this condition, with half his body not working, even that board can't save him. Now, he's completely broken. Lying on the sand, he just stares at the waves, waiting, maybe for a miracle, or maybe for his final breath. Slowly, the tide begins to rise, and the marks he made in the sand calling for help start getting washed away. His injuries worsen, his consciousness begins to fade. He keeps looking at those waves, the same waves that were once his passion, his identity. But today, they stand before him as death itself. And then, something changes inside him. A strange anger, a burning determination. He makes a decision. If he has to die, he won't die like this. Slowly, helplessly, he'll fight till the very end. Suddenly, life surges back into him. He grabs the surfboard and starts dragging himself toward the ocean with everything he has left. There's no fear in his eyes now, only raw determination. He throws himself into the waves and begins swimming toward the deep water. Every wave slams him back to the shore, but he rises again, and again, and again, because he's not someone who gives up. And finally, even the ocean seems to surrender to his will. The waves stop resisting him, and instead begin to carry him forward. No one knows how long he keeps swimming, but a moment comes when all his strength is gone. He doesn't even have the energy to move a single finger anymore. But this time, there's no fear in his heart, only a strange, peaceful calm. Slowly, he closes his eyes and lets himself drift into the ocean. His body begins to sink into the depths. But then, for the last time, fate chooses to stand by him. A yacht suddenly stops above him. Divers jump into the water, grab him, and pull him back up. After fighting death for 48 hours, that man finally wins the battle for his life.